So
colors.
You guys are in Colorado now. You moved to Colorado full time. You know, how much different is it living there, and what is it like now? Also, you're training at altitude all the time.
That actually made a huge difference. I didn't even take into account when I first went out there. When I was cross training and I was going back and forth from my camps, going from Sacramento to Colorado, going back out there was so tough. And some people get affected by the altitude differently. You know, some like Joseph Benavidez doesn't get affected by it at all. I feel like that
Mexicans.
He never gets tired,
Mexicans don't get tired.
I don't know.
It's a racist thing to say, but in a positive way. I'm telling you, Mexicans have fucking incredible gas tanks.
Yeah. And Joseph will come up. He'll be gone in Vegas. He'll come out and he'll train exactly the same. For me, when I go to altitude, it messes with me big time. But I feel like I get the effects from it long term when I'm done with the camp. Like I felt big differences when I train at altitude when I'm done with my camp. After I've been out there for 6 weeks, I'm in a camp, and you come back down to sea level. When we first start hitting mitts at wherever we go, it just feels awesome. You know?
Sea level, you feel like a Superman, right?
Yeah, it's crazy how much of a difference it makes.
Have you ever tried one of those altitude tents, those things that people sleep in?
I have tried it. It's so hard to sleep in it.
Is it?
Yeah, it gets hot in there, and then then your body doesn't recover as well. You know, if you're sleeping at really high altitude, I mean, anything higher than where we're at, if you're sleeping at real high altitude, it's hard for your body to actually recover overnight when you're actually supposed to recover. You're supposed to, you know, have your testosterone build up when you're sleeping and oxygen get into your muscles and recover over the night. And if you're sleeping at high altitude, it's really hard to do that. You wake up more sore, you wake up more tired, and it's hard to recover.
Interesting. So what I had heard was that the best balance was training at sea level, but sleeping and living at altitude.
I heard that as well.
It seems like it wants to go back and forth all the time. That's what I heard when I was in school. You know, I was a kinesiology major and I was really into the exercise physiology. They said train low, sleep high. You know, so that your body, when you're sleeping and hanging out, you're rebuilding all these red blood cells, but then your threshold of working out at sea level, you can push it so much harder, so your body's used to going that hard. You know, but you train in lack of oxygen, you can't train as hard. So, I mean, that makes sense to me. But then when sleeping in an altitude tent, I feel like you can't recover until you're acclimated. You know, once you're acclimated, you can recover, you know, because you have more red blood cells in your body. But until then.
I wonder if anybody does it where, like, you live in San Bernardino and then train up in Big Bear, just keep going back and forth. And then
that was Tito's thing for a while, huh? But he lived up there, though, right?
For his camp.
Yeah, Tito used to live up there for his camps. He was one of the first MMA fighters to incorporate that, you know?
Boss.
Oh, Boss did.
When Boss did fought for his heavyweight title, he came to Colorado for his camp for his fight against Kevin Randleman. So since they're rooting. So because there was a promoter in town that would hold shows. They were called the Lone Wolf Invitational. And he had a couple shows, and then I think maybe his third show, Boss was there. He was just a special guest. So then the shows after that were now the Boss Druten Invitationals. But when he was there, he would be a special guest at the show, and then he would do a seminar the next day. Then I'd fight on the show and then do a seminar. So that's how we came together. And he noticed the effects of the altitude, and then so he just did his next camp there.
I wonder if there's a difference between, like, when they're studying how athletes perform while they sleep at high altitude and train at low altitude, I wonder if there's a difference between the intensity level that MMA requires and the amount of, like, I don't think there's a sport in the world that requires you to train as much as MMA, because there's so many different things you have to work on.
Good point.
Or as hard. Like, we train with a lot of NFL players with Lauren Lindau. In Denver, he trains a lot of Denver players, and a lot of guys come before they do their combine and come and train with them, and you just kind of realize like how much harder your strength conditioning is and how much harder you have to push, and that's just one workout, you know. And then maybe they're going to do some football drills and whatnot, and we're going to hit mitts and do some grappling and wrestling, and it's a very tough sport to get ready for. I mean, I really don't know if there's many that are as hard or harder.
That's what makes it fun, huh?
It definitely makes it fun to watch. You know, it's really kind of crazy when you think about like the 10-minute rounds that Pride had and how difficult 5-minute rounds are. Well, you definitely need it if you're a grappler. I mean, who the fuck's going to beat Demian Maia if every round's 10 minutes?
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
you're going to be worn out. That guy's a backpack, man. You cannot get him out.
God, he's so on another level right now.
That's one of those guys that's so good at one thing, but he's incredible at it that he can get away with it. Most guys can't get away with just being good at one individual aspect of MMA, but he's one of those guys. He's just so dominant at jiu-jitsu that he can get away with it.
See, that's the theory too, or the concept is he's really good at the rear naked choke. Well, a few submissions, obviously, right? But let's say you're just ninja at the rear naked choke. Now, that's your one technique. Now, everyone's aware of that. So all you have to do is just have different entries for that rear naked choke, right? So different entries, and then obviously you finish the submission. But as far as the striking concept, the same techniques or combination, just different entries and different exits.
Right.
But again, that same technique itself.
Yeah, there are a few
Mastery.
guys who have like just really excelled at one particular technique to the point where it gets ridiculous. Like, remember Cody McKenzie was catching everybody with that McKenzatine?
The
he would call
backwards
it?
guillotine
Yeah.
thing. He came and showed it at Alpha Male. That thing is crazy. But you have to be built for it, though. He's like perfectly built for it. His arms are long, you know.
Skinny, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then there was Paul Sass. Remember Paul Sass
That's
won
right,
like
the
fucking
triangle.
12 fights in a row by triangle, and everybody knew it was coming. He couldn't do shit about it.
But
So he
you
fought
can use
Danny
that to your
Castillo.
you can use that to your advantage though as well. So I was helping Matt Brown train for Maia, and I didn't like how he was approaching the fight. That he was so worried about what he was going to do. He's like, he's going to do these takedowns. He's going to take your back. He's going to do this. Like, he was so entrenched in what Demian Maia was going to do to him in the fight, rather than worrying about what he should do, what aspects he should take to the fight to stay away from his game instead of really what he's going to do. So, you know, you can use that to your advantage if you're a fighter that's so strong at one thing, confuse someone and get them so worried about what you're going to do that they're actually thinking inside the fight rather than reacting and just doing what they're good at already. Because if Matt would have fought, I feel like the way he should have in that fight, he could have picked Demian Maia apart.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe he would have got fucking grapple fucked again.
Yeah.
Maybe later on, but yeah.
That's my hope and thought, at least. You know?
Well, I'm a big Matt Brown fan, but I'm a big
He's
Demian
awesome.
Maia fan as well. It's for me, it's weird, you know, because I'm a fan of a lot of guys, and these guys oftentimes fight each other, and it's just like you just gotta appreciate the event and appreciate the result.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate
Agreed.
the sport.
Yeah, but what's one of the cool things about MMA is that there are these outliers, like this one-trick pony, like Demian Maia. But what a fucking trick!
Nice, yeah.
I mean, he can strike, and Damian's striking has gotten leaps and bounds better. It's one of the reasons why he's gotten so better at applying his jiu-jitsu is because he's so much more comfortable with his stand-up. His distance is very good now. He understands striking really well now, but that jiu-jitsu is just so next level.
It's making it happen. It's
when
nice.
he runs through a guy like Carlos Condit like that,
Yeah. Or out-grappers Gunnar Nelson that easy, you know?
mauled him.
Yeah.
Just mauled him.
Yeah.
It's like you said, another level for sure.
And also goes to show you how fucking good Jake Shields is.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Good call.
People
Dang.
sleep on Jake Shields.
Yeah.
Jake Shields beat him in essentially a grappling match. You know, and a lot of people forget. You know, Jake Shields was always a guy who kind of struggled with the stand-up because he wasn't like an explosive guy. He was just sort of like competent
awkward,
with his
huh?
stand-up. Yeah, awkward. But again, he beat Tyron Woodley, the fucking welterweight champion of the world.
Yeah.
Beat him in essentially a stand-up fight.
Yep. So did Nate Marquardt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was good.
Shields is smart with his grappling. He's come out to Muscle Farm, worked out with us, and showed some technique. And his top game is just so
Ridiculous.
tough.
Ridiculous.
He doesn't even have to use any strength. It's just all about his positioning and the way he's on you. It's so tough. I mean, it's a chess match for sure.
Yeah, he gets slept on. He's fighting Fitch now. They're going to fight in the World Series of
nice.
Fighting. That's a very good fight. Very, very interesting fight.
That's interesting. Yeah, both ways. I was wondering about Fitch. That's good to see him back in there. He hasn't fought for a while, right?
I don't know when the last time he tested positive after he fought Palhares.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I thought his knee got hurt.
A little bit of that too.
Yeah.
He tested positive for elevated testosterone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, can't have that. You got to follow the rules, right? The guidelines.
The
That's what has to
rules.
happen. Yep.
Yeah.